What if 10 years of love broke in 1 year of marriage? What if helping your partner's family turned into a fight you could never win? Would you keep paying with your peace or pay once with goodbye? My name is Daniel. I'm 5 years older than my wife, and we live in a big American city. We dated for 10 years, lived together for 6, and married for 1. I supported her school, her work tools, and many bills. When her father was diagnosed with cancer, money and silence tore our home apart. This is how I tried to do the right thing, how we fell apart, and how I learned to leave with respect. We met young and grew up together. We rented small places, shared cheap dinners, and made practical plans. I believed in her, so I paid for what she needed to finish school, tuition gaps, books, a basic laptop. When she started job hunting, I helped with a phone and bus passes. Later, when she got hired, I bought her a used car so she could get to work on time. It felt like teamwork. I did not keep score. I thought marriage would be more of the same, two people moving forward on the same road. Our wedding was small, simple, and warm. Friends laughed. We promised to build a safe life. We kept a joint budget on a whiteboard, or at least I tried to. I asked her to put some of her income into shared expenses. She said she would, but months passed and nothing changed. I didn't push hard. I told myself she needed time to adjust. I covered rent, utilities, groceries, and most extras. I also helped her parents with small things when they asked. I believe this was what family does. We were together for a decade. I thought we were strong. Then life tested us in a new way, and our cracks became fault lines. The call came on a gray afternoon. Her father had cancer. We stood in our kitchen holding our phones, trying to understand what the doctors were saying. I felt a mix of fear, urgency, and duty. I asked for reports and a treatment plan so we could organize help. The next day, my wife asked me to wire a large lump sum to her father. Just send a big amount now. I said I wanted to support him, but I also wanted a plan. Cancer care is long. Bills repeat. I suggested we help in parts, step by step, and adjust as his treatment changed. I also asked her to contribute a portion of her own salary to her father's care and to our home, because we were already tight. She didn't like that. She called me cold and controlling. I said I would start weekly support immediately, buy nutritional items he could use, and take days off to go to the hospital for big appointments. She looked at me like I had failed a test. I felt the room change temperature. Love used to mean we'll figure it out. Now it sounded like, do this my way right now. I made the first transfer and grocery runs anyway. I hoped our actions would speak louder than our disagreement. I hoped wrong. I set up an automatic weekly transfer for her father and kept receipts for records, not for proof against her. I added the cost of nutrition shakes and other items her doctor recommended. I also tightened our home budget. I paused small luxuries, cooked more, and said no to subscriptions. I asked my wife again to put part of her paycheck into either our shared bills or her dad's care. She said her money was for her needs. She said I made more and should pay. I said this was not about punishment. It was about partnership and a long fight. Anger came into our apartment like a draft under a door. It touched every small moment. If I cooked, she said it was not the meal she wanted. If I bought a cheaper brand, she called it disrespect. I kept trying to speak calmly. I repeated, I am helping. I just won't throw one big pile of money without a plan. She heard, I don't care. The truth and her feelings stopped being able to meet in the same room. I asked for a family meeting with the doctors or a patient navigator. She refused. She wanted the money, not the plan. We went to bed quiet and woke up quieter. The week stretched long and thin. For 4 months, she barely spoke to me. No small talk, no shared shows, no cooking together. Touch disappeared first, then eye contact. If we visited her father, we traveled together but lived separate. She walked ahead, I carried bags behind. I still kept the weekly transfers and brought items the nurse suggested. I took days off for scans and major consults, sat in waiting rooms, and asked basic questions about side effects so I could shop correctly. On the way home, she stared at her phone. At night, the quiet got loud. I did the dishes, folded laundry, set out vitamins, and kept going to work. I told myself to be patient. She was scared and hurting for her father. I was too, but fear doesn't excuse neglect, and pain is not permission to punish your partner. When I tried to name the growing distance, she said I only cared about money. I wanted to say, money is how we pay for care. Instead, I said, I'm here. Tell me what you need, besides everything at once. She turned away. Love used to mean us. Now it felt like you versus me, with cancer standing in the middle, collecting what we had left. I made a list of what I could do without falling apart. Weekly cash support, nutrition, rides, time off for big visits, and tracking bills. I also made a list of what I could not do. A large lump sum with no plan, and paying for everything while she contributed nothing to either house or hospital. I sent the first list to her in a short message, facts only, no blame. I said this is how I will show up, and I will keep showing up. I got no reply. Later that week, her aunt said I was a good son-in-law. Her cousin thanked me for coming to appointments. Those words helped, but they also hurt, because at home I was the villain. I cooked dinner and left her plate covered if she came home late from the hospital. Sometimes she ate. Sometimes she ignored it and ordered delivery. I learned to stop guessing. I just did the next right thing. I also asked one more time for a joint budget meeting. She said I was keeping score. Maybe I was, because numbers were the only place where anything sat still long enough to understand. We visited her father every weekend. Their apartment was cramped. We slept on a couch or a chair if we stayed too late. I brought a tote with clean towels, a small fan, and snacks he could keep down. I kept my voice low and followed the nurse's notes. My wife stayed by her dad's side. I stayed useful. Sometimes, when he felt a little better, he told old stories and smiled, and for 20 minutes I forgot the fight. On the drive back, she would say I still thought money mattered more than people. I said, money is not love, but it is oxygen for the plan. She said the plan was just control. I pulled into a gas station, took a breath, and counted to 10. I wanted to protect her, and also protect the part of me that knew how to think clearly. That balance broke each time she said, "You don't care." I did care. I cared enough to be the boring one. The budget, the calendar, the list. But no one claps for the spreadsheet. They clap for the big gesture. I couldn't make a big gesture that would not harm us later. I chose the slow help instead. She chose to see that as cold. The night everything cracked, I was cooking soup. She came in, looked at the stove, and said I was wasting time on cheap food. I said, "It's gentle on your dad's stomach, and it helps us save." She said, "Say you're cheap." Something in me sat down, even though I was still standing. I turned off the burner and said, "We've been living like roommates who hate each other. We need counseling. We need rules. We need a plan we both agree on." She said I was the problem and that I had failed her father by not sending a big amount when she asked. I listed what I had done for months. She said I was counting. I said I was answering a charge. She said, "You love money more than family." I said, "I love you. That's why I'm trying to keep us from drowning." She walked away. I sat at the table and listened to the pot cool. Love cannot live on heat alone. It needs a structure to sit in, or it burns the house down. We had heat. We had no structure left. I wrote her a letter because talking failed. The letter was one page, simple and kind. I said I would continue weekly support for her father, attend major appointments, and keep buying what the nurse recommended. I said I needed her to contribute a set amount to either our home or her father's care. I said we should meet with a counselor and a patient navigator to plan the next months. I ended the letter with one line: "I will not do a lump sum with no plan." I left it on her nightstand. She read it and didn't speak to me for 2 days. On the third day, she said she wanted a divorce. Not a talk, not a pause, a divorce. I felt something snap inside me and then settle. I said, "If this is the decision, we will do it with respect." I sent an email to a mediator. I collected our documents. I printed bank statements and created a list of the items I had purchased for her work and for her parents over the years, not to take them back, but to be seen in the record. I slept badly that week, but woke clear. A line was drawn. I did not draw it to hurt her. I drew it to stop the bleeding in a house that had no oxygen left. Mediation was quiet and strange. The room was clean, the coffee was weak, and our sentences were short. We agreed on dates to move out and how to split what little we had. I didn't ask her to repay me for any past support. I asked only for an honest end. She kept saying I'd failed her father. The mediator brought us back to the process. I nodded, signed, and breathed. After the last session, I walked out into a windy afternoon and felt both empty and relieved. That weekend, I packed my boxes and labeled them carefully. I left her the things that mattered to her life and her work. I took my tools, my books, and a pan that cooked us 100 quiet meals. I wrote a short note and set it on the counter. "I hope your dad gets better. I hope you find peace. Thank you for the years we tried." I closed the door gently because the door had already taken enough slamming in words. On the drive to my new place, I didn't play music. I listened to the sound of tires on the road. It sounded like leaving and like arriving at the same time.